what's up? It's your host, Torry, and who is ready to be petty? There is a lot to dive into today. There's so many stories from the things I usually cover on this podcast. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Kardashians, Bachelor, Taylor Swift, the royal family, a little bit of everything before I welcome my guest, Sirin, from the Spill the Tea podcast. We watched and reviewed Demi Lovato's new YouTube documentary called Dancing with the Devil. So I feel like I've really wanted to talk about this story for quite a few weeks. And I did a little on Twitter and Instagram, but just to do a little bit of a closer look, a picture truly is worth 1,000 words. If you need a quick synopsis because you live under a fucking rock, MJ, the frail grandma of the Kardashians, who is sometimes featured on Keeping Up, posted an Instagram story picture of Khloe Kardashian unretouched in natural lighting, and the world went absolutely wild. Why did everyone go absolutely berserk? Well, Khloe, Kim, and their legal team started to ask websites who were reposting it to take it down because the picture was posted accidentally. It was in bad lighting. It was like copyright infringement, ? Because to us normies, it just looked like your grandma snapped a cute photo and then posted it on her Instagram stories. No harm, no foul. And obviously there was so many comments, like myself included, that were like, she looks so beautiful. I'm so happy that she still looks like this after, all of those pictures that she's posted with retouching. How dare she get mad because she's the one that usually photoshops all her pictures and this is just what she naturally looks like. And a lot of people were upset. They're like, oh my gosh, you look so great. Anyone would want to look like you. Why would you ever want to take it down? And obviously, like I talked about this a few weeks on the pod, like Khloe obviously struggles with her self-esteem and the way she looks. Again, after like years of scrutiny in the public eye and living in a family that has like the most unrealistic beauty standards that themselves can attain them without using, some would say, excessive Photoshop, Facetune, plastic surgery, etc. And I want to be clear, the Kardashians have created the current beauty standard and perpetuate these super, super unrealistic beauty ideals. Why I say unrealistic is because, like I just mentioned, to attain them, many people would require Photoshop, Facetune, plastic surgery, and a lot of money to just achieve this. And I think that that's one thing that people are upset about is she released a statement afterwards and it said, I like to Facetune here or there, and I've worked really hard at the gym to attain this. And I definitely don't want to downplay her work at the gym. Like it has been documented on her Instagram and on her TV shows, multiple TV shows, how hard she works out with a trainer and how much she feels like it does for her physically, but more importantly, what it does for her mentally. And we know this, exercise is great for your mental health. It doesn't always have to be for aesthetic reasons, like a lot of people think that's why everyone works out. And yeah, it is annoying that reality TV stars and celebrities alike don't admit per se that they've had work done that, again, is just unachievable to the normal person. Like even J-Lo in her recent Vogue or GQ article was like, the way that I keep up my youthful appearance is through olive oil. And it's just like, girl, it's not. And that's fine. But then you're just going to have like millions of people slathering olive oil on their face to like stop the premature signs of aging, when we know that a lot of this is from like very expensive skincare products as well as cosmetic procedures. And that's fine if that's something that you want to like engage in for yourself. And it's trickled down to other parts too. Like, I think about the TikTok and like YouTube makeup artists I follow, and I'm like, oh my God, their skin looks flawless. Why doesn't my foundation application look like that and stuff? It's because they're in like a studio with like a ring light in front of their face and stuff like that. So it isn't always what it appears, is what I'm trying to say. With all of that being said, though, I think two things can be true. You can perpetuate harm, in this case, people looking to the Kardashians, seeing what is perceived to be desirable and working really hard to look like that, whether that be spending tons of money, dieting, like etc. Sometimes harmful things, and or feeling bad about themselves, which you know can affect your self-esteem, make you feel less confident, which could have impacts on your life, like not doing activities that you want to do, not applying for jobs that you want, like all of these things. But at the same time, I also feel like you can be harmed by this system too. Like, she, again, has been picked apart, belittled, and bullied for like 20 years by thousands, if not millions of people, constantly talking about the way that she looks, every which way that she turns. And I think that my other point and last point about this is, I'd like to just say that people are saying, why don't you just live your life without these filters? Be brave, say fuck the patriarchy. Women don't owe you pretty. This is what I look like and I'm proud. I don't need to follow these unrealistic beauty standards that are really impacting my life. And I also think that that's really difficult because that's asking a lot of people. And obviously, like, I think that too. Like, I would love to have her step into that. But if she doesn't want to, that's also okay. Just because you experience something doesn't mean you have to like spearhead the cause or be the poster child of anti-diet culture or anti-Western beauty standards or whatever. Maybe you want to and maybe you don't. And I don't think that we can be mad at her because like that's subjecting yourself to a lot. Tons of public scrutiny, going against her family's norms and values, which I think would also be very difficult. And obviously my first thought is like a little part of me is like, I wish you would do that. I wish you would step into that role. I wish you would be a role model, I guess I would say, for young women. But then when I really think about it, I don't think you can ask someone to do that. I think, again, it's like one thing for me to go out in high-waisted jeans with my fupa out and just like be like, fuck it, this is me. But in the role that she has that none of us will ever experience to the level that the Kardashians have, I think it's a lot and that we'll never understand. I guess I would just ask is, what do you think? Should we demand more of our celebrities? Probably, sure. Does it need to be directed at Khloe in this incident? No, like let's look at the system as a whole, or changing like our attitudes and beliefs around beauty and bodies and not put all of our eggs in our Khloe Kardashian basket. But let me know what you think. It's really a nuanced conversation. I think there's lots of different ways you can look at that, but I hope that that was just some food for thought. The next story, I think, for me is kind of the same in terms of like you can cause harm and also be harmed at the same time by possibly the same system or other forms of oppression. And that is the case with Colton Underwood. I don't want to super get into this because I think that there's been some really good podcasts and articles written about this by LGBTQIA plus people that really will give a way more nuanced perspective that I can bring to this conversation. But since I do talk a lot about The Bachelor, and this was a huge Bachelor news story, I will give my 2 cents. Take it or leave it. Again, if you live under a frickin' rock, which hopefully you don't, Colton of Bachelor Nation fame came out on GMA, and I'm just bringing this up because I'm happy that he has come out, and I really empathize with him when he was saying things like, I loathed myself and I felt pressure by my faith, his Catholic family, and his sport. He was a football player, and like, that fucking sucks. And I want everyone to, you know, be able to live authentically. And on the other hand, I just don't think we needed this segment on GMA and like a fucking Netflix special to boot. He stalked his ex, Cassie, when they broke up, I think like last summer and like fall. And I should also just give a content warning. I'm going to talk a little bit about abusive relationships now, so you can skip ahead if you don't want to hear about it. I'm not going to go too in depth, but I am going to name some behaviors that were written in his restraining order. But like, he went to her house in the late hours of the night and like stood outside her window. He got a fake phone and like harassed her, and then like fake harassed himself, so they could like trauma bond over this other fake stalker and like possibly get back together. And then he also put a GPS tracker on her car. So some really, really gross stuff. And I don't know where they stand today. And maybe he has made amends to her in a way that feels good for her. And maybe she's gotten the justice that she needs to move on, even though I don't know if you really move on from these things. But also maybe he didn't tell her all of this was happening and that he hasn't learned. And maybe from what he was saying in the interview, that is actually closer to the truth than not. When he talks about what happened with that relationship, he just kind of vaguely mentions mistakes that were made. And it was just really all hard to hear, and I just really feel bad for Cassie, because in addition to all of this, he was just getting a lot of support online, and I do want him to feel supported from his community and his family and stuff like that. But do I think we need to give him a platform? No. I would just be happy if we didn't hear about him anymore, really, and I don't want to give abusers more of a platform. The Bachelor Party podcast on the Ringer Network did a really good episode on this. And like I said before, there's so many articles and podcasts and tweets that really discuss the impact of this story and the announcement, etc. So if you want to hear more about this story, I encourage you to check those out. Okay. Onwards and upwards. The Fearless re-recordings came out a few weeks ago, and I'm so glad they're doing so well on the charts, and I'm just so excited for Taylor. There's so many bops that I just haven't listened to in so many years, so it was really fun to revisit them. I think one of my favorite songs, because we got the vault songs too, is That's When. And I've always loved Today is a Fairy Tale, and it was like just starting to get a little too young for me. Actually, probably this whole album, just her voice and stuff, it seemed like she recorded it 13 years ago or whatever. So her just really matured and like fine-tuned voice, and just the re-recorded like melodies and stuff are just so good, and I'm really, really happy for her. With that being said, I'm going to be petty for like 2 seconds. So obviously throughout the release of Folklore, Evermore, and Fearless, there's been so many fun Easter eggs and like a scavenger hunt of clues online for fans to try to figure out what's going on. And, you know, is there a third album to the Folklore Evermore trilogy? When are we going to get the 1989 re-recording? Just like all of this juicy tea that everyone wants to figure out. So my TikTok algorithm just like basically only picks up Taylor Swift conspiracy theories. And I'm just so tired. Like, it is the most addition and long division I've done in several years, maybe over a decade. And it's even got into like my Bachelor Facebook groups. People are like analyzing the fucking braids she has in her hair. And I'm really, really tired. It was super, super fun until it wasn't. And some of the theories are just so unhinged. Like literally counting the letters in each announcement and stuff. And then adding them all up. And then minusing all these things. And I just can't do it anymore. So I'm going to stay off of Taylor talk for a little bit. I just need a teeny tiny break as I wait for 1989. I'm going to plug one more Ringer podcast. They should pay me to be an ambassador at this point, but the podcast series, Every Album, Taylor Swift, is so good. It's like an hour episode for each album she did with Nora Princiotti and Nathan something. And the episodes go into a lot of Taylor stuff that I just didn't know but like care about. Like a lot of the music and business side of things that I just haven't found in other articles. I learned so much, even though I already know so much about Taylor Swift. So if you haven't already, you know, like don't stop this podcast. We still got a ways to go, but like once you're done with this one, head on over to the Ringer and give Every Album Taylor Swift a listen. Okay, to get a little bit more somber before we jump into the Demi documentary with Sirin, Prince Philip, I wrote Prince Philly in my notes, but Prince Philip passed away a few weeks ago. And like, it's sad when someone dies, but also he was 99. And like him specifically, I was just kind of like, meh, you know, okay. I'm kind of just over the royal family right now, like as a whole and a concept, obviously. I'm against it, but like it used to be fun to follow like the Fab Four, and I've just found it with all the Meghan stuff just like a little bit less fun nowadays. I'm also on Royal Talk, which you all know because of my last couple episodes covering the royal family. But literally, I felt like I was getting bitter and just sick of them when there was a TikTok posted about, like, it was about Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth, and it was like romantic music and like a slideshow. And I literally just went to the comments and just wrote like they're cousins. Then I was like, I need to also take a break from the royal family. This is just, you know, you're at your rock bottom when you're A, commenting on TikToks, and B, you're just writing their cousins. Like, when someone had just passed away, like this is getting so ugly. You've probably turned off this podcast. But if you're still here, I do apologize. I am 100% going to hell over my Prince Philip coverage. Like not only this episode right here, but like the fucking tweet roundup I did post his passing on my Instagram stories is just, it's ugly, and I realize that, and I can't stop. But Harry is going back for the funeral, which I think it's held this weekend. I'm recording this on Friday, and the headlines are getting old. It's Harry's going back to London, Meghan Markle is not. And it's like, yeah, she's like very pregnant, and it's probably a high risk baby because they unfortunately had a miscarriage this past year. Like, you're kind of, again, leaving out such an integral part. And when people just glance at headlines, which most people just do, that paints a really clear picture. That's not true. It paints the wrong picture, I should say. Anyways, of course, I can't help myself, even though I've just said that I need to set boundaries about Taylor talk and royal talk, but it's like all the men aren't going to be in their army garb. I literally wrote army garb in my notes. Like their formal army uniforms is the word I'm looking for, because Harry doesn't have a title, so they're going to go in like suits. And is there going to be a reconciliation, and are they going to talk, and this person is going to stand in between William and Harry, but it's not drama, we swear, and just all of this stuff. And I don't know where I'm going with this, to be honest. I just want to put it all out there. Okay, I've gone on way too long. It's time for me to introduce my guest to talk about Dancing with the Devil, and I'll catch you on the other side. Without further ado, my conversation with Sirin. I'm back with a very special guest. Sirin from Spill the Tea podcast is here. Sirin, how are you?
Hi. Yes, I'm really good. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited actually for the topic today. We're talking about Demi. So we've both been chatting a little bit, I think, before the podcast, and we've been talking about how interesting her doc is, and how we're both making notes.
You suggested to talk about the Demi Lovato documentary, Dancing with the Devil, that was released on YouTube. So thanks for the suggestion. It was put out in episodes, but I feel like I'm going to just talk about it as like one
as a whole
thing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. But it was a really interesting watch. So I'm glad that we get to talk about it.
For sure. Yeah, I didn't know actually. Did you watch her? Because she's had 2 documentaries. She had, I think, one on MTV and then one on YouTube.
I didn't watch the first one.
I didn't either.
Starting again or
something
I
like
forget.
that. Something like that. Starting over, starting again. Yes. Something cliche.
She references it because it was in 2017, so it was like kind of before all of the things like the overdose in 2018 that she really details in this documentary. But no, I hadn't. And I want to say, like, off the top, like, I'm a Demi fan, but like I'm not like by any means like a super fan.
I'm the same.
Or like I don't know everything about her life like I do like Britney Spears or something.
Yeah, I mean, I know everything about Britney. She's iconic. No,
yes.
I'm the same as you. So I think like we're probably both looking at it from like obviously an interested perspective. And I do think there's, she's super talented, and I listen to, her music when she brings it out. But yeah, I think hopefully we'll be a bit more objective, unlike maybe some super fans. Obviously when you kind of got an idol, you're kind of a bit like tunnel vision, you're kind of biased as well. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see like both our perspectives. Maybe they'll kind of align in that case then, if we're both coming from a similar viewpoint about Demi.
Because I could totally see how super fans could, and we're going to talk about it later, like the production of it and stuff. But I could totally see how, invested you would be in this type of thing and how you might view it a specific way.
For sure. Exactly.
Before we get too much into it, can you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Oh, well, I'm from London. I'm 24. Sounds like a dating show. I'm like, I'm single. I'm single. I'm from London. I'm English. But yeah, I have a podcast called Spill the Tea, just with a T, not kind of spelled out, to be a bit different. But yeah, it just really, I think I started my podcast just because I'm, like I said, 24 and in the middle of kind of dating and experiencing, I guess, my 20s for I'm 4 years in now, and I just think like everything that comes with it would be such a good discussion. So I talk about basically everything on it, from relationships, careers, what kind of how I'm dealing with lockdown and the pandemic as well, and just more importantly, I think other people's experiences and dating relationships and what kind of, because I always think we can learn from others, and I know I had Torry kind of already on my podcast, and we talked about kind of celeb gossip and Britney Spears. I really enjoyed that, and I think it's we kind of, I guess, we discussed like what lessons we learned from kind of how they treated, or how the media treats celebrities. So I think from every story and every guest that comes on, I really like to, I guess, discuss what we can learn from that particular experience. So yeah, that's basically what I try and do on my podcast, and keep it really fun and entertaining at the same time, as much as possible. But yeah, so just recently started my podcast, and yeah, I love doing it, really love it.
That's so good. I always think about that, like having a podcast and then like say in 10 years, like revisit. Maybe I'm still podcasting in 10 years.
Yeah, fingers crossed, right? Maybe really famous in 10 years. Let's be optimistic. We've not got time to listen to our old shows because we're just too busy. We're in demand.
Yeah, could you imagine?
Oh
we're
me
like
and you have a talk show.
Moguls. Yes.
Torry and Sirin. It's like, well, literally everyone has I swear everyone has a talk show. Like in America, Kelly Clarkson, Drew Barrymore.
Yes.
Honestly, the most random people.
And it is like really random. Like, I feel like sometimes people are like, I've always wanted to do this. And I'm like, have you?
Have you really? Like, you're a singer. And like, I kind of get, I guess, acting, talk show. But it's such a stretch. Honestly, every time I go on YouTube, there's a new like actress or singer that's become a talk show host. I don't know who's next. I really don't. But I'm just like, oh.
It's so random. And like, I just don't really love those ones because and like no shade because I haven't watched like tons of them.
No, I haven't, no.
So I don't really get to have an opinion, but like I just feel like, yeah, like if you're not like a journalist, I love how I'm saying this even though I have zero background in like journalism or interviewing people.
I'm like, I literally can't talk, you know, but
oh my God, I'm
sorry,
such
everyone.
a fucking hypocrite. Oh my God. But I like always think I'm like, it's so like their conversations are so like surface level and just like boring and stuff. Like
it's like daytime filler, right? I just feel it's that kind of vibe. I'm the same, and I guess the only pull like someone like probably Drew Barrymore or like Kelly Clarkson, like we were saying, is I guess they know certain celebrities and they can have more of a like casual interview, but probably know what to ask them a little bit more. Maybe the celebrities are like more comfortable because they know them, and it's not just like a random journalist. But that's kind of the only advantage. I've watched a few clips and I'm just like, I don't understand. I don't get it.
It really is what you're saying, like filler.
It's such filler, yeah.
It's something that you could just put on in the background while you're like cleaning your house.
Yeah, exactly. I guess that's how it's intended, but yeah, just change the subject there. But honestly, it just reminded me of everything. Maybe it's quarantine. Maybe everyone's just like, I really want to get into hosting my own show. That's it. And like us, you know.
Yeah, it's true. Honestly, true.
Oh my God.
I guess we should get into the topic at hand. So for those like uninitiated, the Demi documentary kind of details her experiences about her relapse.
Yeah.
So she was 6 years sober and then she started recreationally using drugs. Like she was talking about heroin and crack.
Heavy stuff, definitely.
And like mixing it with like Molly and weed and alcohol and
oxycodone, I literally, there were so many, I couldn't keep up. There were so many drugs mentioned. I don't do drugs, but yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know if you're a drug expert, but
no, I'm not. But like, I do believe in like harm reduction and like legalizing drugs and stuff like that as like a form of harm reduction and like really judgment-free zone here. Like,
oh, for sure, you're not like hurting anyone. It's just what's best for you.
Yeah. What works for you, and like, and if you choose to use like trying to get as safe as possible, like knowing what's in your drugs that you're using with other people that are safe, and all those things. But yeah, I don't have much experience personally.
No personal experience here. Yeah, no, I totally get you. No, I agree. I just think it's people that, you know, think, I guess, experience like drug abuse and overdosing, etc. I don't think are like morally bad people. You know, it's like any addiction, right? It's often caused by like circumstance and sometimes upbringing and like I said, just lifestyle. So yeah, it doesn't make you a bad person. But I guess we'll talk about this more in a minute, so I don't want to like skip too far ahead. But I just thought it was very interesting Demi's attitude in the documentary, how she very much focuses on herself. And I always thought like a key part of admitting you're an addict and kind of recovering from it is, I think part of it is to acknowledge the hurt that you've put your friends and your family through as well. I can imagine it's kind of part of that. Maybe not guilt. You shouldn't feel, guilty, because that could lead to like relapse. But I think a part of it is understanding the effects of drugs. It's part of it, because you're not just hurting yourself. It is to do with other people, and that kind of gives you a bit of motivation to quit or to go sober, etc. But she just seemed very much, well, I was in pain and no one was there for me, and I've had a tough life. And I'm sure she has, but it's just, she never mentioned her sisters, and like her sisters were obviously visibly really emotional. I think particularly her smaller sister, and she never mentioned her mum, her stepdad, etc. So yeah, I found it really interesting, like her attitude throughout the documentary as like a general point, but I don't want to skip too far ahead, so I won't say much more.
No, that's a really good point, because you're right. Like, the person that I was like really captured by was her assistant, because her assistant is the one, again, if you haven't watched the doc and you're just listening for fun, her assistant was the one that found her overdosing in her bed and had to call 911. And like just thinking about that situation and experiencing that is like, must be so challenging and
traumatic.
One thing that I wanted to talk about is like, this documentary was created by Scooter Braun Films. Scooter Braun is her manager.
Yeah, her new manager, yeah.
He became her manager, I think, in 2019 after this had happened. But like, there's obviously an angle to this documentary, and that it's like not to clear her name or anything or explain necessarily, but there's definitely like, when your camp puts out a documentary about you, there's obviously an angle.
Yeah, it has to be at least, I think, fairly positive for, a manager to approve it. Whether Demi wanted it, because I'm sure she has some control over it, but ultimately, there's someone else, there's other people in her team that need to kind of approve like the final edit, and the way it's produced is kind of out of her control ultimately, with especially like interviewing other people and like her friends and stuff. I'm sure maybe she did, but kind of in regards to like what they said, maybe that direction was kind of given from like Scooter Braun, someone in her team, etc. I think the problem is that it's really hard to, I guess, trust what she's saying, because her 2017 documentary that you were mentioning, number one, it coincided with an album, I think. What was that?
So does this one.
And so does this one. So
yes,
this is what I mean. I'm like, okay, and I do understand, like, you do want that kind of maximum exposure, but it just seems like such a marketing piece. And
I know.
Her I don't know if you've seen her music video of Dancing with the Devil, and she's like in a hospital bed, and I'm like, oh, is this? I get like you want to show what you're going through and what you went through. And it's good to be honest. And I think for other addicts, it's great to kind of also maybe see someone more in the spotlight that's going through similar things. So I do get it, but is it like a bit exploitative? I don't know. I'm just been like, I'm just a bit unsure,
Totally. I'm on the same page as you. Like, I don't know where I sit. Like, I don't know if I'm like, this is exploitation, or like, again, utilizing this experience as like to sell stuff.
Yeah, I'm the exact same as you.
Is this just like
her being candid, right?
Yeah, her being candid, her using her art form as a therapeutic means, or like, or to again, you're right, like reduce stigma, normalize, like getting help, and seeing people like come out the other end of addiction and stuff.
For sure.
I don't know where I stand.
No, I know. Me too. After watching it, I'm the same as you. I think maybe I guess to sit on the fence completely for both of us, it's a bit of both, right? So she's being candid, but also can't deny, it's a great, maybe not great, but it's a marketing opportunity, because it's got, a lot of exposure, and it's coincided with her album, and it's been used to kind of build that up. I thought that was definitely interesting, like you said. And like Scooter Braun also talking of him, he's had that kind of experience with Justin Bieber, with like rehabilitating his image, because he went off the rails. Like he was, and now he's kind of come out the other end, I suppose. He's released new material. He's had his own documentary on YouTube. So, and I think he released, it was like Intentions, in line with that documentary. And that showed like his wedding and, his romance with Hailey. And it was a very like wholesome, and
Totally.
which was, again, really a stark difference to his reputation at the time. Well, or just before that, which was, a bit of a kind of, he was really bad to work with. I think there were rumours, and he was just doing this kind of like basically diva behaviour. He bought that monkey and
oh my God,
left it in quarantine or wherever. So yeah, he had crazy behaviour, and he's kind of come out the other end. So I wonder if like Scoot's trying to do that with Demi in some way.
Yeah, and like it makes sense that they kind of paired up in that sense,
right?
Like when because she actually approached him and was like, "Hey, would you like to be my manager?" And he was saying that he was gonna decline, and then it was so weird because he was like, "She really needed a friend at the time, and like that's what I thought I could be." And I feel like that he has a weird relationship with like his artist, like his big artists, like Justin and Ariana and Demi.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I found it, and actually that's a good point, because the way she talked about some people, some paid employees, was really strange. And I know this is probably more to do with celebrity as well, but that, I think it was like her head of security. She was like, he's like a father to me. And I understand, I get like staff can be close to you, but ultimately they're paid. I just think that's a really weird line. And it's kind of like her friends were, I know a couple of her friends were shown, and one was like her sober coach and most likely on her payroll, I think. And I just think it's really weird how you place such emphasis on these people that are ultimately there because you pay them to be there. And yeah, it's very dependent, that I think it was like this kind of maybe unhealthy like dependency she was showing, like I said, particularly on head of security. It was just a weird thing to say, like a father figure is a big statement.
I think you're bringing up such good points, and they're all things that I was thinking about too, is like sometimes when celebrities, like I think of Kylie Jenner, where like basically all of her friends seem to be like on the payroll. Like her assistant Victoria was like her best friend, and then it was like Ariel, her makeup artist, was her next best friend. And like it seems so weird that these people can have people around them that, you're right, like maybe again aren't there for the right reasons, but like have these external reasons why they're like
have a job
there
to do. Right, exactly. And kind of I guess maximize that and make maybe something more of it than it is, and they kind of humanize these professional relationships, right? And they turn them into, like Demi was saying, maybe a fatherly figure, which I find like security is his job. So of course he's there to protect you, but he's paid to. So I feel like that distinction between professional and personal is missing. And I think that's probably like a wider celebrity thing, like you're saying as well, because it seems, it's seen in quite a few of them, definitely, these kind of like really close and personal relationships.
Yeah, and I've been looking at the trends of child stars, and especially the ones that have had like really rough patches. And like sometimes I really think that the like main thing is really like a stable family. And if they're like missing that like support,
which she's mentioned, right, she's pretty, again, quite candid about her problems with her real dad, and kind of like prophesizing that she's going to end up, or she has ended up like him, because he had drug problems, and that's kind of the cause of his death. I think was it played a really major factor in his death. So she obviously feels like this tie between how, his addiction and her addiction, whilst also kind of, I guess, struggling with the fact that they didn't have this normal, kind of whatever normal means, but like normal, I guess, healthy relationship. So yeah, it's interesting that she's kind of pinned that kind of father-daughter dynamic on her head of security, who is literally paid to protect her.
So have you listened to the album that goes with the documentary?
So I've listened to a few songs, obviously like Dancing with the Devil. I've listened to
Yeah.
the one with Ariana Grande as well. But yeah, I haven't had a chance to listen to like the full album yet,
Yeah, me
actually.
neither. But I've been seeing a lot of conversations online, and like a lot of people have been talking about how Demi, again, with like her Disney Channel start and stuff like that, they just projected her to be this huge star. And then like people were kind of talking about
Right.
how maybe she hasn't like not lived up to that, but hasn't like actually reached that like type of stardom. What do you think about that?
I think, I mean, do you know what? I think also her and Selena Gomez were like really best friends, were best friends back in the Disney days when they both have, because Demi was on Sunny with a Chance, right? And Selena was on Wizards of Waverly Place. And I know they were really close. And I don't know if you remember, this is such a throwback, but like the Miley and
Oh, of
Mandy
course.
drama on YouTube.
Of course.
Oh my god! I like 11-year-old me was living
Yes.
for it when they did like that
Oh.
parody, when Miley did the parody, and it was like teenage
Oh,
me.
it was
I loved it.
amazing.
It was great. Such a throwback. It was iconic, honestly. But yeah, I digress. Yeah, her and Selena were really really close, and obviously I think then drama happened. They grew apart. Blah blah blah. I think Selena was the star, was the singer who Demi was as closely compared to. Probably because, like I said, they were such close friends, but also they had, I think, a similar look at the time. They were obviously both from Disney, and they were both in that kind of pop field. Very different voices, but I think probably what annoys, maybe not Demi herself, but like Demi fans, I would say, is that Selena has just become, I mean, all her songs, I think as well, her relationship with Justin Bieber helped massively. And I think it's all down to a bit of luck as well. But her songs are pretty big hits. When she has an album release, like it's quite a big deal. And I mean, from looking at her videos live, she's not the best singer. She's not going to win any awards for like being the strongest singer, right? And Demi, I think, as anyone that's probably seen her live or like seen clips, she has got such an amazing, like a really strong voice, hits like incredibly high notes, and probably hasn't achieved that chart success alike to Selena. So I think, long story short, I mean, it's probably really unfair to obviously say, oh, because Demi is successful, when she, especially like over here in the UK, I'd say she was pretty well known, but maybe not as well known as Miley Cyrus, for instance, and other kind of Selena Gomez and other Disney stars like that. So yeah, I guess it's definitely unfair, and I just think it's just a case of luck, really. And probably she had those, I mean, she talked about like those struggles growing up, which might have affected her kind of, I guess, marketing campaigns when she was kind of launching her previous albums. Like there's so much behind the scenes that probably went on and went into it. But yeah, she has got an amazing voice, and I can imagine, especially being like compared to Selena, it probably does get a bit annoying. But I think, as you probably know, it's not all about talent. There's always like something else that is thrown into the mix as well. It isn't, unfortunately, chart positions aren't directly related with how good of a singer you are. There's a lot of other stuff that goes into it.
Yeah, and I think it really got me thinking about like what was the last Demi Lovato song that I like really listened to. Like literally, I was thinking, like, is it Cool for the Summer, which was released like 5 years ago?
I think I agree. I mean, because she released like I Love Me, I think last year, 2 years ago. And then there's been Sober, which obviously is to do with her OD. That was like just after. And there was that song with Christina Aguilera, which I can't even remember the name of.
It's so interesting because, like, again, like, you're right. Demi, I feel like, is the better singer, per se, when you think of Selena. And I don't think Selena's latest album, Rare, did like, I know the single did well, but, like, the whole album, I don't think did that well.
She's so much more of, like, I think Selena, a single singer, if that makes sense. Like, when she kind of teams up with a DJ or something like that, it's normally quite a big hit. I guess because her voice is very moldable, because it's quite soft and it sounds great over like a dance track or an up-tempo kind of, it can be remixed quite easily. But yeah, no, agreed. I think album-wise, it probably shows like her weaker points, and Rare wasn't, yeah, you're right. I don't think it was, a massive hit.
No, because there was like 2 singles off of that, maybe that or maybe 3 that did really well, but I don't like know the other songs. But yeah, it is interesting when you think of like the kind of crowd that Demi was with. So it would have been like Miley, Selena, and the Jonas Brothers, and just like
Oh
how
my God, yeah.
commercially successful they've been. And then she, has just kind of had these like bumps in the road. And I feel really bad because it does really suck when these issues have contributed to that.
Yeah, no, I think it definitely contributed to that, of course, and yeah, probably kind of a lot of factors come into play, for sure. And also it's interesting because I was going to say as well, I think now she's probably in, maybe not danger is the wrong word, but she's kind of known for her addiction issues, and it's almost overshadowing her music in among the general public, right? Because as we've just said, like she has been successful, but she's not like, I don't think, like my mum for instance, and like I always kind of view like a massive pop icon based on kind of who my parents, do they know any songs by them? And I don't think my mum for instance would know any songs by Demi Lovato, so I feel that hasn't like filtered down to like the general population yet. But I feel that a lot of people now know about her addiction issues, right? So it's kind of in danger of like overshadowing her music. Whereas I think what I'm assuming, aiming to do is kind of have those addiction issues and to complement her music almost, and to tell a story. And she can then tell the story through her music. But yeah, I don't know if they're doing like the right strategy, because obviously her documentary made the headlines, but her album didn't, right? So it's kind of being more well known for that addiction side of things than strictly her
totally.
music.
And like I also just think that she is kind of has this niche market. Like for example, I listened to Sober, I watched her live performance. Obviously I was like, this is beautiful, this is moving, but as a person who doesn't struggle with that stuff, I'm not like, I don't have it on my iPhone, like listening to it on a walk. Like
listening. Yeah.
Like,
Like
I enjoyed, but I'm not like replaying it on YouTube or anything like that.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. Like you said, it is, I do, and I really like Call for the Summer, but I don't think that was like, I think it got quite a lot of radio play, but it wasn't a massissive hit. Like, I don't know about America, but yeah, over here, I listened to it and I thought, oh my God, this is going to be massive. This might be her first or maybe second. I know Heart Attack was like really big as well. But yeah, I kind of thought Call for the Summer might have been a massive hit, but it just wasn't. It's strange, but I think that's just, like I said, it's probably down to a little bit of luck as well, and marketing, loads of management, etc. But yeah, her career's been interesting.
In case you don't want to watch, it's I think 4 episodes and they're like 20 minutes each. So honestly, it's like an easy watch. Before we get into the top 3 moments, did you like that it was split up like that? Or do you just kind of like the classic like Netflix documentary where it's just like all in one go?
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know, actually. I didn't really think of that because her last documentary was all in one go. I think the way they split it, I get there was like a theme of every episode. So maybe I understood. I mean, sending it out weekly, I think obviously in this day and age, I much prefer watching everything all at once. So that was kind of annoying. I wanted to like watch everything all in one go. So yeah, to wait a week for kind of a 20-minute film or episode or whatever it's called, I think is a bit silly. I didn't really understand that at all. Maybe if it was like an hour kind of, or maybe like 40-50 minutes, I understood it a bit more. But yeah, I was like, why did I wait a week for this? But I guess they probably wanted to stretch it out, keep interest in it. So I got why they did it, but it was more of an interview, it felt like. I don't know how you felt, but it wasn't. I mean, the camera didn't follow her around anywhere. I mean, she was kind of like within her house. I know it showed like her new house, but I actually preferred, funny enough, her previous one. I don't know if you watched that, but yeah, the 2017 one felt, I mean, she said she's lying in it. And now, like in her interview now, she was like, I've lied throughout. But at the time I thought, it was a really nice kind of overview of her life. It showed like her hobbies, what she'd been up to. I think she was doing at that point like martial arts, and it was a sit down interview as well, but it had a few more elements. But I guess maybe because of the topic, it was very much focused on her OD. So maybe that's why they did the different style. But yeah, I guess I didn't feel I learned as much about her as maybe I did the last time, even though she was apparently lying. So who knows? But yeah, I guess I preferred the style of the last one in general.
Yeah,
but,
it's weird how we've been like trained to get things like immediate now. Like I'm the same. Netflix. Do you watch The Circle by any chance?
Yeah, so we have a UK version, so I don't watch like the US, but yes, we watch the UK. Well, I watch the UK version.
Everyone says like it is so good.
It is good. It's really good.
And like even like they have like Brazil and I think like a French version too, and it also has really good reviews. I've only ever watched the US version, but it came out, it was like 4 episodes or something would come out like a week every week on Netflix, or maybe it was 1 episode per week. And it's funny how you're just so used to Netflix like just the whole season being there that you're like annoyed.
Like, it's so annoying. Honestly, it's the worst.
So the top 3, I think, interesting moments. I never want to say like, I don't want to also sound exploitative of her struggles, but like the top 3 things that I thought were worth mentioning, I guess, specifically. The first one was that she was assaulted during Camp Rock by a cast member. And I think like why I just wanted to put this in is just like, it just like really shows what people are going through, even if you think their lives are perfect. That was like super inarticulate, but like just thinking about like when I loved Camp Rock, I loved Camp Rock too, and just, you know, seeing her on the red carpet and like you're like, wow, she's thriving, this is like the peak of her life, and just like thinking,
yeah, she seems so healthy, happy,
you know, doing what she loves, having success, like finding purpose in life, and just like thinking that behind the scenes this was going on is just so sad to me.
For sure, me too. Yeah, no, agreed. No, that was definitely, I think, like a top moment. And again, I think we were talking about like press coverage from the documentary, and that definitely got a lot of press coverage. And I guess just tying into that, I think on a related note to that kind of sexual assault that she was talking about, I know she also mentioned the sexual assault with her drug dealer, I think it was, and well, I think it was, she said, you know, it was rape, and so she was super candid about that, and I think that's obviously like a really good thing in that hopefully it will encourage other women, even, you know, other men as well to kind of come forward and be very open about it. I get for legal reasons they obviously can't name and shame who it was, but I just hope, the right steps were taken. And yeah, these things are so complex, and it was definitely a really positive thing overall a positive thing that she talked about it, even though it was really sad, obviously, for her to go through that, and obviously contributed, especially like you said, during Camp Rock, to that kind of, I guess, her trauma, and probably was definitely like a factor that led her to do kind of hard drugs and try them.
Yeah, I think that just we can, again, just have so much empathy for people that come forward with these stories. And I just really appreciated her sharing these things so candidly for us to just hear about these things more. Because again, I think people think like, oh, maybe not anymore, but I feel like because we just have so much access to celebrities, but I feel like just people are like, celebrities or people with money, they have no problems, and like that's just not the case.
No, for sure. Yeah, I totally agree. But yeah, that was I think overall like a top moment, whatever the right wording is. But it was, like I know what you mean, but like a notable moment, right, in the documentary, for sure.
And then the other one I wrote down was when the assistant asked for no sirens on the 911 call.
Oh my God, yes. I was shocked. I mean, that again was quite like glossed over. And yeah, it was. Also, I noticed it was her ex-assistant now, which was interesting. But she didn't really mention leaving or why she left. Maybe it was, I mean, do you know what I found really funny? That maybe not funny, but odd. And I guess this is like world of celebrity. I mean, Demi's like a 27-year-old woman. Why on earth? I mean, it was a good job she was being woken up by her assistant, because obviously she wouldn't have been found because she was passed out when the assistant got there. But why did she have like a human alarm clock to wake her up? It's like, hold on. I think this all goes back to like, there's no responsibility in Demi's life. Everything is done. Everything's outsourced. And this is what I really struggle with, I think, and a lot of people do with celebrities. It's so tragic that Demi's gone through that, but there are so many people that are going through very similar issues, if not worse, or, you know, as bad. And they don't have the money to have a sober coach, have a management team, have a personal assistant. And I just think like this definitely plays into that kind of childlike mindset that she seems to have towards her staff, essentially, and people that work for her. Because why is an assistant physically waking you up? It doesn't. I get like someone picking you up, doing them kind of things, taking you to your job, for instance, getting stuff ready. But yeah, it really struck me as like, oh my God, this is clearly normal behavior because they just said it so matter of factly, you know? And yeah, really odd behavior for sure.
Like I was watching Bridgerton. I'm doing like a rewatch.
Oh my God, yes, I love Bridgerton.
Not the assistant, the like
lady in waiting, like her.
Yes, Daphne is like waking her up in the morning. And I was like, This is so weird that this is like continued with like celebrities. It seemed really weird. Yeah,
I was gonna say, except they didn't have alarm clocks then.
So you're right. You're right.
Or a phone. I'm like, come on, Demi definitely has a phone, you know. I'm just like, I think it's perspective, right? That's all I was going to say.
And it's so different also because I just think about like the amount of people that are like in her house on a given morning is so weird to me. Like that was the other thing that stood out is like the assistant's waking her up, but like she was talking about how she like went downstairs to make the 911 call and she's like walking past other people and stuff. Because I feel like when I watch the Kardashians and stuff like that too, I'm just like, wow, there's like a billion people at your house.
Yeah.
Just to like manage it, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And I think as well, Demi was even saying she hates being alone, essentially. So I know I think, wasn't it her former choreographer was saying that Demi was begging her to stay one night and she wished she stayed because then she wouldn't have overdosed or might not have overdosed or she would have been there when she did. They all felt very guilty, which was interesting. It was kind of like, well, if I did this, she might not have overdosed. I'm like, yeah, I totally get it. I get that. Of course, when you care for someone, you don't want to see them in pain. And I think that it's really good for her growth if she kind of stops being infantilized, I think it's called, where, you know, she is treated a little bit like a child and, or at least was in her old team. I mean, they even said that, you know, they kind of couldn't, I think they said her friends were like, we couldn't eat around her. We couldn't, and look, if that was me, I'd be like, look, I can't work here. You know, I can't be told what to drink, what to eat. Ultimately, I think a little bit more independence would probably do her some good.
Totally.
And yeah, hopefully that's something that gets worked on. But I don't know. It just seemed very childlike to me, that kind of managing of her.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. And I think it's such a common response for people that are around people with addiction or maybe suicidal thoughts or something like, if I just did this, I would have stopped this. And I'm like, no, not like that.
No,
like,
for sure.
Like that's so valid to think. I've been there. I've been the person thinking that too. But like, no, you did everything you possibly could. It's 0% on you to think that you have to like monitor her 24/7 or whatever. So
true.
Yeah, I felt so bad for those people.
Yeah, definitely.
The last thing that I thought was just like so notable was that she was legally blind for 2 months after the overdose and she still cannot drive. She suffered a heart attack, multiple strokes, and brain damage. I think I glossed over how, and like, again, there was like the episode, like 5 minutes to live, like that's what the doctors are saying. Like there's really no chance for your survival and stuff. And like, I think when this happened in 2018, like I think I glossed over like how serious this was.
Like the consequences of it as well, because you kind of hear, oh, she survived and it'll be fine then, right? But yeah, like you said, it obviously took such a toll on her body. And do you know what I found really interesting? That, you know, they were saying, you know, she'd heroin, she tried, I think it was like crack cocaine / heroin for the first time, and she took pictures of it, which kind of denotes to me maybe she thought it was really cool at the time. I mean, you take pictures kind of, you know, when you're younger, of like your first party, you know, because you kind of want to, whoever she was sending them to, it's like, I want to show off that I'm doing drugs. So maybe it's like something to do with approval as well. But it's interesting, and I guess that's kind of related to your point in that she said, well, I'm an all or nothing person, right? I don't think I can ever go completely sober. Like, it's not fair. And I'm just thinking, I know it's not fair. Like, people with addictive personalities, it is annoying. Like, I would be the same. I'd be like, wait, hold on. All my friends are getting drunk or maybe doing a bit of weed, kind of maybe doing coke recreationally, why can't I do that? But unfortunately, and this is again, I think, linked to maturity and responsibility, you can't always get what you want, right? And it's like, I think she needs to kind of accept that, because obviously, I can't believe, like you said, you listed all these blindness, she can't drive, she had a heart attack and probably like lasting effects from that, and she's still saying, well, I can't be completely sober forever, like I just don't think it's realistic. And I'm like, well, maybe it's definitely going to be hard, but you kind of have to, right? You because otherwise, what's the alternative? The alternative is what? Death. I just didn't.
Yeah.
I thought the tone in that last episode was really off. I'm just like, hold on. So she hasn't really learned anything, from that experience.
Yeah, and like she even talked about how after the overdose she used again, like hard drugs.
Yeah, that's so true.
And like that just, I think, shows how strong addiction is and how you can literally like basically die and still want to do drugs. But yeah, like this, I felt like Elton John really did not agree with that. He was like, no, because one glass of wine leads to two, one pill leads to another, like that type. He was like not down. Yeah. But,
for sure.
But like, I do think that I'm watching this TV show on Bravo called Summer House. And there's another person, and sobriety for him is also like having a few beers on the weekend, but like generally being sober. And it is interesting. And I don't know any of the research or anything, if that is like effective and stuff, but like, yeah, I would be just so nervous.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think you're right. I think the only thing I can relate it to, like I said, I've been really not lucky enough to not have any addiction issues, but I can only relate to, like, I guess based on what I talk about in my podcast, like relationships, right? If you're trying to, say, separate or stop having feelings for an ex, say, you need a clean break, and then you can work on maybe being friends with them in the long run. But until you've kind of become completely neutral and then feelings leave, that's like the equivalent of like sleeping with them once a week, right? And you're like, oh, no, I'm fine. Like, we're not together, but I'm in control. I'm fine. And really, like, them feelings are still there, and they're never going to go in that way. And so I just think relating that back to drugs or alcohol, it's such a slippery slope. And I just feel that I actually don't think Demi thinks in black and white. I mean, she said that, but I think it's very much grey, where, because I think black and white is like, you either do drugs or you don't. Whereas she is definitely saying, well, I'm California sober, which is like drinking and weed. And I don't know, like you said, I think it's really hard to judge. And like, things work differently for different people. But I mean, I've known people that had addiction issues, and sadly, one of my friends, when I was super young, we were like 13, he had a drug overdose and died. And I know that he went to rehab, I think, at such a young age, loads of times. And he just, even if he tried whatever, ecstasy, like we were saying, weed, it always led in the next few weeks or months to something more. And because he didn't have a control, of course, you can't have control over something after only a kind of amount of time, a small amount of time after you've had an overdose, right? It's just kind of common sense, I feel. So yeah, ultimately, I think, like you said, it's really hard to judge, and I'm not part of Demi's life or anything, so whatever works for her. I just don't believe, I suppose, from that documentary that she's got complete control over it. That's just my kind of summary of it.
Yeah, like I just think like the accessibility, like she has the money and rich, the means, right, to find drugs so easily. The highs and lows of fame, like her career is just always gonna have extreme highs where she will probably want to celebrate, and extreme lows where she might want to cope. And then again, these like weird older people around her all the time that are on her payroll. And then like her family issues
all play a massive part.
Yeah, they truly do. So overall, I think that it was a really interesting documentary, and I learned a lot about her, and I just wish her the best, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that there was some like interesting points that we could like dissect as well.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. No, there is. It was a good watch, but yeah, there's definitely some things to take away. And yeah, I think it did show her. I don't think it showed her in like a positive light, but I don't think it was negative. It was just kind of neutral, and I think she was really candid, which is a good thing for, like I said, people suffering maybe from addiction issues or sexual assault. That can only be a good thing, like speaking out. But yeah, I think like we were saying, I suppose, I don't know if, I mean, her takeaway message of, well, no, now I'm really telling the truth, guys, and I'm in control of it. It's kind of like, well, it's like the boy who cried wolf, right? It's like, you've said that before. So I'm just probably more on the cynical side of the fence from the documentary. Yeah.
We'll just keep supporting her from afar, and we'll just we'll see kind of how it unfolds. But yeah,
exactly.
Wish her all the best.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. This was like a good discussion. I feel like we covered so many different things.
Yeah, we did 100%. No, it was really interesting. It was, I guess, a bit darker themed because, you know, we've been talking about addiction and some really like heavy topics. But I think it's hopefully a good thing for other people to bring those issues to that Demi's brought those issues to the fore, and, you know, to kind of mass attention. I think it hopefully can only be a good thing.
Yeah, me too. So if the listeners want to hear more from you, Sirin, where can they find your podcast?
Yeah, so my podcast is called Spill the Tea, and it's on all major platforms, so Apple Music, Spotify, Anchor FM, and my Instagram is the same. It's at Spill the Tea, so you can also find me there.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. It's been really fun. Thank you for having me.
And there you have it. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you, Sirin, for joining me. If you have something that you want me to discuss on the next episode of Ready to Be Petty, slide into my DMs. You can message me on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. I'm at RTBP Podcast. I love to hear your feedback about the podcast or your hot takes. Did you agree with me? Did you disagree with me? Let me know. And yeah, give me your pettiest things to talk about. You can also leave RTBP a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps the podcast find new listeners and grow the RTBP community. I hope that you are safe and healthy out there. As always, I'm your host, Torry, and I am ready to be petty. See you soon. Bye.